So thank you so much for everyone for joining us. Again, this student design challenge is part of our bigger concept and program called the Depot, which we're working on through the partnership with the City of Fairfax EDA, as well as some other folks, restaurants in the Fairfax City area. But yeah, I'd love to hand it over to Amber and or Colleen from the Office of Sustainability if they have some thoughts on plastics, as well as some specifications on types of food and beverage product containers that we could work on.
Yeah, I was just gonna jump off just to kind of give the context, and then I'll hand it off to Colleen to talk about some of the products and things like that, product specifications. I'll just go off the top a little bit and just say, plastics production really outstrips the Earth's ability to deal with the amount of production that we do, and 98% of plastic right now is virgin plastic, meaning it comes from new oil extraction. So, and a lot of times we think about, oh, the worst part of a life cycle is when you throw something away. A lot of times actually it's the extraction and production of the item that has some of the worst environmental and social impacts. So if we think about 4 to 5 trillion plastic bags used yearly, 1 million plastic bottles bought per minute, these are global numbers, of course, and then on average, only I think everybody's heard this stat, but only 9% of plastic ever made has been recycled. But even if you dive down into those numbers, end stage plastics typically only plastic is 12% incinerated, 79% ends up in the landfill, 16% ends up in the ocean. So these are real impacts on our natural environment. We hope that plastic can, be recycled more and more, but if we just do more programming, if we just do more engagement, unfortunately, what we've seen in practice over the last 25 years is not that. And so, I would just say that in 2018, when China stopped accepting plastics, some of these like films and things that say they're recycled, but really aren't being recycled in great numbers, China actually stopped that because of their pollution problems. We started seeing US exporting to Thailand jump by 7,000%. And now US exports over 1 billion pounds to 96 nations, and it's ending up in their rivers and oceans. So plastics production is largely from virgin sources, and it's not recycled at end of life. So we kind of need to think about reusables and better alternatives that are single use, and with reusables obviously being our number one focus, because they just have much better impacts than any single use alternative. So if you have any more questions, we definitely have a lot of materials on this. I know NWF has materials. So we definitely interested in talking more about, the big problem of plastics, including carbon footprint and things like that. But I'll send it over to Colleen to talk about some of the specifications that might be interesting for you all, and also what we're doing right now with dining and others at Mason.
Yeah,
so
thanks, Amber. We've been working pretty closely with Mason Dining, partially because of Mason's immediate transition to compostables within food service over the summer. So a lot of these specifications are pulled directly from retail dining sites controlled by Mason Dining, like their inventories. So through the PGF, which is the Patriot Green Fund, through our office, we've also been working with student groups on some reusable pilot programs, specifically an engineering capstone team on a reusable to-go kiosk to sort of help with that monthly inventory reconciliation and tracking those containers. So that the focus of that project and the product they're testing is a 3-compartment reusable clamshell, and that's really one of the key items that we are focusing on for reusables, because at Gold Rush is where the pilot is, and that is one of the main containers they use. The other containers that we're looking at within the pilot, but we're not exactly testing and we would love some creative solutions to, would be their entree containers and kind of their salad and soup bowls, which are used throughout multiple locations. So right now, those entree containers are two components. So there's a lid and sort of, like the main compartment, and that's sort of difficult to track. People might lose one compartment over the other. There are hinged options that are compostable, but in terms of reusables, those are difficult items, I would say. There's a lot of products on the market for reusable to-go clamshells and things like that, but some of the maybe specialty items and the kind of deli containers or soup containers, whatever you want to call them, those ones are sort of the difficult ones that we would also love, to find solutions for at Mason. I included some of the specialty containers just as an example because these are also containers that have, that might have solutions in terms of like lids and to-go like opportunities, but we really don't know if there are any products like that on the market that are reusable. So I thought those might be interesting for you guys as well. I know that there are some like compartment containers for like, sides and dips available, but that would be another kind of area, especially at Eagle Bank Arena. That, maybe in the future that could be pretty cool too. So I just wanted to have those there as well. And then I guess here's an example of what they're testing within the PGF project. It's from a company called Preserve, which is sort of an official partner with Fill It Forward. Fill It Forward is sort of it's a reusable, they make reusable products that have a QR code printed on them, so it connects to their app, and every time people scan their reusable bottle, they donate money to clean water infrastructure projects through charitable partners. So it's kind of a cool way of incentivizing reusables. So that's why we encourage the engineering students to go with Preserve for product testing. And some of the kind of weaknesses or things that might be like, that might have room for innovation are, like I was saying, like that inventory piece, like having some sort of tracking ability within the container would be quite useful for reusables, especially on a college campus where there's a lot of people going in and out of this location. It's not really a contained dining, site. And like I mentioned already, like the attached lid, being able to keep track of that, and also like different sort of materials. Preserve uses 50% recycled content polypropylene. So it's recyclable, but is it easily recyclable? Is it endlessly recyclable? No. So there are definitely like material improvements that could be made there. And these are sort of just the considerations that we went through when we were talking with Mason Dining, and also our own office kind of considerations when we're looking at reusables. So for Mason Dining, the key ones are really that it can like withstand their commercial dishwasher, so about 180 degrees. Durability is really important. So they have hard water, they told us, and sometimes that leaves like spots and things like that. So that's one of the considerations. And container size is actually kind of important to dining facilities as well, like portioning things out correctly and all of that. So a 9x9x3 clamshell, that would be like the correct size for like Gold Rush, which is one of our pilot sites. And on our end, our office has like sort of the additional considerations of end of life disposal. We really want to make sure that items that are used on campus can be diverted from incinerators and landfills. And I put in an example there of a company on the West Coast called Dispatch Goods that uses stainless steel for their containers, which is, has its, good kind of like benefits, and also its downsides in terms of production and, like weight and cost. But that in like silicone containers might be interesting as well. And then life cycle impacts. So, is it produced without like PFAS? Like some plastic containers, fluorinated chemicals are used to line some of the equipment when they're molding them. So things like that, just safety and also durability is important to us from a life cycle perspective as well, because, you know, the benefit of reusables are that, you know, after like 3 to 6 uses, depending on what you're comparing it to, you really do see the cost benefits and you see the emissions benefits after a couple more uses. But yeah, so having that longer life cycle is really important to us as well. I think that's everything.
Well, thank you, Colleen. That was such like a broad and deep look into just different ideas that students could work on, as well as why these things are important as well. So I very much appreciate kind of the insight on the sustainability aspect. And I'm very excited that you guys are kind of helping us out with our design challenge and just supporting student ideas and innovation in that area. But I'll pass it over to Crystal on the actual kind of rules and guidelines.
Thanks, Becky. My name is Crystal Fickers with the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, and I'd like to go a little over the guidelines and prizes that we have available for this exciting design challenge. So firstly, the purpose is to explore returnable, reusable, and sustainable food or beverage containers for producers, transporters, retailers, and customers. The rules are such that teams may consist of 1 to 5 students, must submit a unique product idea not currently available in the marketplace. Each entrant will submit 1 design and 1 prototype, and the registration deadline is Thursday, March 10th of this year. The assessment criteria will be based on 4 points. Firstly, elegance. Is the design understandable, clean, and demonstrates simple ergonomic function? Secondly, feasibility. How well does the entry function? Thirdly, market value potential. What is the potential for commercialization or bringing this to the marketplace? And how large is the addressable market? Finally, sustainability. How environmentally friendly is your concept? Can it be reused, recycled, and/or sanitized? Now I'd like to go over a little about the prizes, the exciting prizes we have up for grabs. I'm happy to share that the first place prize will be awarded $1,000 in award or purchase supplies for prototype implementation, membership to Novolab's Makerspace for each team member, and the opportunity to present the idea at Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship community-facing events and to the City of Fairfax restaurant owners at Restaurant Week Roundtable. Second place will receive $625 reward in supplies or prototype implementation and membership to Novolab's Makerspace for each team member. Third place will receive $500 for prototype implementation supplies and Mason's Choice Award, which were based on votes cast by the Mason community. More details will be shared on that later. Will receive $150 for purchase supplies in prototype implementation. All will receive ongoing support from the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship to further advance the application of concept or prototype. Now, with this design challenge, we don't just want to present the opportunity to innovate and reinvent the food and beverage container. We also want to provide a means of accessing the resources needed to design your prototypes. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Tim at the Mix, who will talk a little bit more about the available resources. Thank you.
Absolutely. Hi, welcome everyone. I'll keep it relatively brief, but as you're starting to embark on this and you're looking around and figuring out how do I want to make this and what can I make this out of, I would encourage you to start looking at the Mix sooner rather than later, because we would like to have you in here using our tools and equipment, our laser cutters, our 3D printers, our scanners, and the rest to however you're going to start tackling your project. Come on in, talk to us, use our resources and our staff. And all of our information is on our website at mix.gmu.edu. And I'll throw that in the chat there as well.
All right. So if anyone has any questions or any thoughts or feedback or anything that I can help explain, I'd be more than happy to do so.
Hey, yeah, will the slides be publicly available?
Yes, so we're going to share out the information to anyone that attended today, just so that you can take a look at the kind of guidelines and prize options and everything like that. And if you have any questions after reviewing, our email is ciemason@gmu.edu, which will also be in kind of that kind of outgoing information. But we're really excited to have you guys participate and really want this to be kind of your vision of how we can make more sustainable containers moving forward, and just, you know, seeing how far you want to go with it. So we're excited to support and see what kind of designs folks come up with.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Becky, I just wanted to note that I put in the chat the link to the form. So if you're interested in joining the challenge, we have like a really easy Google form that you can complete, that we just get your email, and so that we're able to send you all of the information.
Yes, and it's definitely not too late to sign up. So if you know other students that might be interested in joining the challenge, like Tim mentioned, we'll have lots of kind of opportunities for you to go to the mix. They have ongoing workshops every week on certain machines and equipment that you would be really helpful for you to take their workshop ahead of time, so that when you start working on your idea and at that session on the March 9th date, you'll be ready to go and familiar with the equipment and tools. And I believe that Sydney in the room had a question. Sydney, if you want to come up.
Yes, I do have a question. Is there a way for individuals who would like to form a group or pair up, but they don't right now, don't have the opportunity to do so right now?
Sure, great question. So on our Google form that we'll make sure everyone has access to, there's an option to select if you're seeking out team members. So anyone that is looking for people to partner up with, or might have an idea and need some additional team members, we'll definitely try to play some matchmaking as well. So we want everyone to join in, even if they aren't pressing forward with their own idea, to be able to collaborate across campus. Great question, thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Amber?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you have a Teams built out for this, so that, or like a channel in Teams, so that if people have questions, maybe we can't have another meeting or and everything, but maybe we could just ping them back with any answers to any questions they might have on a or sort of a chat basis.
That's a wonderful idea. It's fairly easy to create teams within Microsoft, so we could definitely, if people are comfortable with adding themselves or getting into the team, that might be a great resource to say, oh, this person had this question that another team might find useful as well. I know we're quote unquote competing for prizes and everything like that, but in the end, it's all about kind of moving the ideas forward more holistically. So yeah, that's a great suggestion, and we'll look into getting that organized. Thank you, Amber. Any other last questions that anyone might have before we pass it over to Andres Jordan? So as we mentioned, he teaches a design thinking course on campus, and was recently shouted out in the George for all the great things that he's been working on with the student groups. So he has generously offered to share his expertise in design thinking and doing like a little bit of a mini workshop. Personally, I will be taking some notes. So thank you so much, Andres, for volunteering your time and expertise. I'll hand it over to you.
Hey, thank you guys. So I will, a lot of what I'm going to offer you is audio right now. I didn't have a presentation, but I'll send it to you guys because I wanted to get a feel for where we are, you know, where people are in terms of what they know design thinking is. So let me ask a question, and you can give me just a thumbs up or thumbs down to those that are going to be participating in this. The question is, before we go there, I want to let you guys know that this I have a special interest on this. I think plastics is such a horrible issue that we need to address. So I'm a little partial to this. When Rebecca told me, I was all over this because it's such a big problem that we need to solve. And I'm a supporter of the ocean cleanup. I don't know if you've heard of that, but I encourage you to look it up. You know, it's a company that was started by a 17-year-old. 10 years later, they finally have some prototypes that are cleaning up the ocean, right? There's a huge ocean patch in the Pacific that is the size of 2 Frances, right? So you guys, the people that are participating in this are at the front end of trying to solve a massive problem. So I encourage you and thank you for doing so, you know. But the question is, are you doing this for intrinsically? Are you doing this because you really want to solve this problem because you're passionate about it? Or are you solving this because you see it as a business opportunity? So the question is, give me some thumbs up if you're doing this because it's something you love, you want to solve the problem. To all of those are going to participating? Okay. And okay, cool. I got 2 thumbs up. Cool. You can bring those down. Who's doing this for more because it's as a business opportunity, more of a startup situation? Okay, cool. All right. So let me start by saying that to solve a problem, especially a wicked problem, but in this particular case, sorry, my internet connection. Do you hear me? Yeah. So I wanted to say, so the problem statement here is because the problem statement is it something, you know, as you start thinking about this, right? Use what we use in design thinking, divergent thinking. And then as you start getting up ideas, then you do something we call convergent thinking, right? But divergent thinking means expand the context of the problem, right? Once you start figuring out what the problem is, and the problem, you know, coming up with a problem to finish is not easy, right? But the challenge sort of has that. But as you do that, think divergently. So think the person you're trying to do this for, right? You're doing this for someone like us that don't want to cook and they order out, right? There's different divergence there in terms of how is it going to get delivered to your house? Are you going to drive to get it, right? And the reason why divergent thinking in terms of, you know, elastically expanding the problem is going to give you so many more ideas in how, you know, where the opportunities are for solving this, right? Let me give you a good example. Let me just top of my head. So we decide that 80% of people are going to drive to get this thing from the restaurant. Maybe a solution would be, because the problem there is the person, you know, the person that went to the restaurant to get this thing. It's driven by convenience, and they don't really care what they get, right? But perhaps they do care. So perhaps there's an opportunity to have a little refrigerator in the car, you know, and you could take the food and put it in there and take it home. The point is that might be unrealistic, but the problem is that opens your mind to all kinds of different ideas. So use that as a trick, which we use in design thinking. And that means expanding the context a little bit, right? And looking at all the stakeholders, which is very important. It has to be a solution that I teach my students about mental models and how, depending on your life experience and when you were born, we have very different mental models, right? And adapting to those mental models is very important. So, you know, and they're used to this mental model of ordering, getting it. You got to try to figure out a solution that sort of works with their mental model. And that's not easy to do, but try to do that, because it's much easier to innovate and iterate within their mental model than outside them. So let's say you come up with an idea. You say, I'm just going to have drones. You know, I'm just going to have drones and pick it up in a paper bag and bring it to the house. Well, you know, somebody, I hate to say this, but somebody, you know, that's in their 70s and 80s, you know, they're not going to want to go outside and get get it from the drone. They don't want the drone landing on their garden or whatever, right? So my point is, be radical, but use some of those ideas and try to fit it into the mental model that you're trying to iterate for, you're trying to create an innovation for, right? Some of us have more awareness about this, but a lot of people don't. Case in point is the whole plastic bag issue. Regulation had to come in to motivate people to pay 2 cents a bag now, to dissuade them from using plastic bags, right? And within that, there's also an opportunity there, because you're thinking, okay, maybe, we motivate people by having reusable content, and maybe we give them 5 cents to return it, right? Or 10 cents, which you're adopting from the beverage industry. So beware of those mental models. Also look at different materials. There's a lot going on in material science. I was telling Rebecca, bamboo has such a huge thing, for example, and very, very sustainable. That just an idea. So another thing that I encourage, especially in this situation, I encourage everyone to look globally as to what's happening on this and how people are adopting new solutions for this. So look globally. And here's a trick. Look at, if you can, try to find what people are doing in third world countries. And let me tell you why. This actually, a lot of you guys probably don't even remember the brand Nokia. Nokia that used to dominate the industry before the iPhone. The interesting side note on that is Nokia had an iPhone ready to go, but they chose not to. But anyways, one of the things I learned from them is that they actually had scouts, and in this case, try to find what kind of material, because in the third world countries, and I grew up in a couple of those. I grew up outside of the United States. It's very interesting how they use things, right? So you always can come up with ideas and how they use different packaging and things, because they're motivated. They're motivated for reuse, and they're motivated to come up with solutions that are cost effective for obvious reasons, right? Economic disadvantage. So I encourage you to look for ideas there. It's all about research, idea generation, and then of course prototyping, right? Question I have for Rebecca: are they going to have access to? So before they actually come up with the idea, are they going to have access to potential users so they can iterate the solution with, or not? Is it my question?
So I would definitely encourage from an entrepreneurial lens for folks that are participating to see if there are opportunities to, for example, interview or get feedback from customers that are in whatever particular food or beverage container usage. So for example, if that means sitting in the Johnson Center and talking to either restaurant owners or managers there to say, how many of these are you using a day, and just collecting data. You don't necessarily have to look too far sometimes to get some really valuable insights, and seeing, developing who is your customer, what problem are you trying to solve? Is there another way that you could be looking at the problem that you haven't even considered before? So one thing that we say often in the center is to fall in love with the problem rather than the solution. So, because sometimes it's fun to say, oh, I've got this cool looking design, but also taking into consideration the other points that we'll be evaluating the project strength on to say, is there a need for this and all that type of thing. So that's definitely an important piece for sure.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for that. So the few things that you said there are very valuable. So one is, absolutely don't fall in love with the solution unless you bounce off that solution from the people you're iterating for, or the people you're solving the problem for. Now, in design thinking, usually the ideal group, and it might not be doable here, but the ideal group that you want to have with you the whole journey, once you have a prototype, is about 8 to 12 people, right? And those people are selected. There's a selection process for those people that I'm not sure we're going to be able to do here. But once you get a prototype, try to make those people be in the journey, right? as you iterate, and have them look at it. Say, yes, from my point of view, that's not going to work. From this point of view, it's going to work. You know, it's not going to work. It's not going to fit in my kitchen. So make sure, and what happens when you do that is you realize in, you know, the whole mental model thing that you work into their issues, right? You're trying to fit in their operations. So very important, because a restaurant's operation is very complex. And there's all this, you know, there's all these processes. When I was in college, by the way, I'm an alumni, by the way, at George Mason. I used to work at a restaurant. So very, very, very complex processes. So try to, you know, have them say, hey, you know, here's my solution. How would you use it? You know, where would you put it in your process? And would it make it easier for you, or make it more difficult for you? So for example, you know, something like that, because that, what it does, it brings you back from this dream idea that you have, right? Or using drones, right? Which nobody's going to use, at least not yet. So, you know what I mean? So just do that. Very important to do that.
If I could just add one piece again. So part of our built-in programming is for the students that have submitted projects or would like to kind of interact with customers coming to our depot, opportunities for the sales and things like that, as well as that chance to get in front of the restaurant owners to say, hey, what feedback can you provide? Or, you know, what connections can they gain from that roundtable, literally a seat at the table. So we're hoping to kind of also incorporate opportunities further along in the process too, for students to get and teams to get feedback.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. So let me take everybody quickly through the design thinking process, right? And for those that don't know, let me give you another question. Who knows what design thinking is or has been exposed to it? Give me a thumbs up. Everybody that sort of knows it, or, oh my, no thumbs up. Okay.
We're all newbies.
You're all newbies. Okay, so just give you a quick history on design thinking, which is, it's valuable because a lot of people dismiss it as this left coast thing. And I grew up in the left coast of Latin America, but it's very similar to California. So design thinking came out of Stanford and back in 59. And it was so it's been around for a while, but the thinking, and it was initiated by this, believe it or not, an engineer that decided that, you know, engineering didn't have enough of a human element, right? So he come up with this idea of we need to be more human as we design products. And that led to this whole concept of human-centered design, which it's been out there for a while as well. And so the process basically is about 5-stage process. And the big word is empathize, you know, empathy, how, you know, try to get into somebody's mind, trying to understand where the pain point is, how they're using product. So empathy is very important. So empathy means listening without judgment. Means I read enough of a neuroscience to know that our minds always try to filter reality in a way that's familiar to ourselves, right? So we're constantly judging. You may not know it, but we are constantly judging from our phones or in the news, everything. So we tend to filter reality through our own life experience, and that can lead to judging. So very important to observe, to empathize, and it enters in the problem definition stage, but it also enters when you start maybe developing a prototype. And in design thinking, ideally, you want to have something 3D, right, hands-on, that people can test and use. So let's say you come up with a great packaging made out of bamboo, right, or whatever. You give it to the people and you have them use it in their environment. That's very important. So let's say you come up with a cool one, you give it to the waitress or waiter or whoever packages the food, and you look at it. You look at them, ideally without them knowing. Or somebody's asking her questions, he or she asking questions, somebody else is observing. two different people, right? So that way you stop the judging thing. So let's say I'm interviewing Rebecca, about how she's using this concept. First, you observe, no judging, just write everything down. And then I noticed that she had a problem with the lid, right? And so then I would ask her, hey, you have some problem with the lid. Tell me why. What did you feel about it, right? So you have the questionnaire. Ideally, you have a second person just observing or writing the observations. Very important. So that's part of that's a big word in design thinking. And the other one is iteration, right? You have people try the product, you observe, you change it, you change the lid in this case, Rebecca using it, then you have her do it again, and then you try until you get to a place where the product, the MVP, minimum viable product, we call it, is viable enough and it's firm enough from all your input that you have that it's you can now take it to a broader audience to test it, right? So testing is very important. Iterate, testing, and it never ends at the end of the day. Here's the reason why it never ends. It never ends, and this is what I tell my clients, when they're trying to develop products. We have a tendency to develop a product and just let it sit, right? No, you got to iterate constantly. You got to change things constantly. Let me give you an idea of how Gen Zs learn versus how baby boomers learn. Is changing drastically, right? And George Mason's adapting to that. One of the ways they're adapting is to bringing people like me to kind of teach you from the outside in. So the process is forever, really, because the technology changes so fast that, let's say you come up with a cool product, right? And a quick solution, and think out loud here. Let's say you come up with a great solution requiring, I don't know, some chemical that is being used in batteries, just to think out loud. Well, guess what? There's going to be a rush for the chemistry in batteries because we're all moving to EV. You might have an issue getting the basic ingredient to create a product, right? So if you need to be ready for that, right? Because at some point you say, well, I can't make the bags from this chemical anymore because the price is going up because Elon Musk is going to buy all the supply for his cars, right? So then you need to have a sense for that, and the way you have a sense of that is always stay on top of the market, always stay on top of the resource, understanding what's happening with the resource. Can you use it forever? Can you not? So iteration, always going out to the market, is very important. The third is, it has to be, unfortunately, we all want to solve the problems, like I talked about earlier with the great ideas, but are they sustainable? Are they practical? And are they financial? Do they make financial sense, right? Restaurants, the margins in restaurants are not the best. So if you're going to try to come up with something that is going to compete with plastic, it's going to have to make sense financially, unfortunately, because some high-end restaurants probably make enough margin that they can give people an option, right, to take sustainable materials or not. But your average mom and pop restaurant might not. So just try to make it work, the numbers work. So that's also very, very important. And design thinking is about innovation, right? So they go hand in hand. And what happens is, as you innovate and as you introduce new concepts, it changes cultures, right? Cultures become more agile. This whole concept of agile is very important. So agility in terms of design, in terms of adapting your changing the color schemes, for example, and that can vary. But let's say you come up with an idea that, why don't we make the recyclable containers or something where you can put advertising? Great idea, right? Now, be aware of how advertising being received, right? Be aware, how the digital revolution is impacting things. So let me leave it at that. But that's a lot of content I gave you guys. But I'm also going to send a small, not small, but a reduced presentation to Rebecca. She can distribute it. In this case, I want to emphasize also the problem definition, and I know the problem definition has been sort of decided, but sometimes what is defined as a problem is a symptom. So let's just make sure that we are solving, and I saw the introduction. I think the problem definition is right on, but be aware that your clients might not necessarily agree with that definition. So just make sure that there's an agreement, with the people you're iterating for. Ask them, do you see this as a problem statement? How does it impact you? Very important to get that point of view as well, because then you have buy-in, right? You have their buy-in. Getting buy-in all the time is very important as well. You don't want to scare people away. Get their buy-in, and help them iterate. Leave it at that. I know we have some time left, but any questions?
Yeah, I think Amber, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to, we've worked with the capstone group from the engineering school on something, looking like a reusable return container, a reusable kiosk that you can return your container to. And so I just wanted to mention that, the sizing on that is similar to the preserve containers. They do not have a small, container, as Colleen said, but I did want to mention two things. One of the things that's hardest, and I think Mr. Jordan just mentioned it, is sometimes the restaurant or the customer, the client in your case, would rather use single-use plastics because it's cheaper for them, it's easier for them, there's no cleanup. So one of the things we've run into since we've done Executive Order 77, now there's no single-use plastics, they're probably styrene allowed at Mason. We've really had to push folks into better single-use alternatives for right now because of the timeline, but we're really trying to push toward reusables. But the dishwashing is one of the big, hindrances for them. There are countries where even like restaurants send, noodle meals and other things out in reusables, and then they collect them and they wash them. That's not something that happens in the US that much. In Copenhagen, I think 98% of soda bottles are glass, and they're taken back and refilled, cleaned and refilled. There's just not that system here. So sometimes the system is broken, as he was just saying. And so, that's one of the hardest things about this, is that we're really trying to push upstream against the single use. And no matter whether it's a better single use, like compostable or, whatever it is, it really is, the ball game is getting a reusable that people can use, return, and wash, and then repeat. And that's durable, lightweight. I would love to see stainless steel instead of plastic because it would last a lot longer. But there are some issues with that, so mostly like if people lose it or it doesn't come back, then the upfront cost, the university losing a $30 object versus a $5 object is way harder to maintain a reusable program. So if there's ways to deal with some of that financing part, there are other more durable options out there. So yeah, definitely all of these things. That's why, the teams would be great if you guys have questions about what some of the vendors have told us on campus or around this area. I know that even the catering contracts for Mason now require compostables to come to campus for the preferred caterer. So that's local businesses. So we're pushing them toward BPI and CMA certified compostables so that there's not PFAS in it, but it's still a single use item. And so we're really hoping that some kind of system, not just a product, can really start to, come alive for the reusable, but it is going to be difficult. So I just wanted to mention that, and we're here to help. Thanks.
So let me add a couple of things on there. So design thinking now, and good point that you brought here, and I forgot to mention this, is moving to service design, right? So service design is the entire ecosystem. So what I encourage you to do there is to teach, to think about how you nudge people into the use case that you want. Again, but you're finding mental models here, unfortunately, but there are ways to do this. One good example is Blue Land. Check out blueland.com. So Blue Land, they send you the packaging forever. It's forever packaging in a way, and then they send you the refills, right? It's been very successful, right? And how did they find this? My daughter found it through Instagram. So my point is, think of the whole ecosystem and how you can judge things to new behaviors, right? If you wanted to influence some of these products like Blue Land did, then you got to be nudging people using some of the statistics, and of course, trying to do it through Instagram or TikTok, right? But there are ways to nudge. Primarily, people respond to financial incentives, right, and ease of use. But some people do respond to their soul, call it their soul, to try to save the world. So there are some models there that will example, I can't think of the brands, but there's brands that say, hey, listen, if you buy this, I'm going to give one for free for the kids in Africa, right? I can't think of the glass company that does that. But so there are ways to judge again, but you're right, think of the ecosystem, how you can nudge people into the use case as service design.
Well, thank you for all of that knowledge and all of that expertise from all of you guys. That's very, very inspiring as well, just to say, like, here are these big issues that we can try to start kind of chipping away at and thinking about, not only, like Amber was saying, not even just specific products like this challenge is designed for, but broader than that, more systematically as well. So I also wanted to kind of highlight kind of like the what's next kind of piece of this. And we do have a date set with the mix to encourage folks to start going from that thinking and idea phase to actually getting to get hands-on prototyping going and brainstorming and all of that kind of stuff, kind of that next step into action. So that will be on Wednesday, March 9th from 12 to 1 p.m. And so we invite folks. And then as Crystal mentioned, our deadline to really submit your idea and your application through our Google form is going to be the March 10th. So even if someone is still interested in kind of attending the workshop or also attending the equipment workshops leading up to that March 9th date, you can still kind of encourage people to join in and take advantage of the opportunity. And then I think that's about it. But on that March 9th date, we'll kind of have some experts in different areas. I know that our sustainability folks and Andres, you're very much welcome to join in on the sessions and just kind of be there to kind of push us to think about things. Yeah. Think about things in different lenses and different considerations to take into thought.
I'm pleased. In the meantime, if some of you want to reach out with some help, let me know. Okay. Just reach out.
Wonderful. Well, I think that's about it, unless I guess Sydney has one question.
Yeah, I do have a final question. So should we also be thinking about how, whether when making the design, how businesses can use it, or also like everyday people can use it?
Either or, yeah. So that would kind of determine who your customer is. So that could be individual users or kind of the more broad systematic players as well. Sorry. So Sydney's question is, yeah, sure.
There's a big movement right now. Let me tell you about an app called, hold on for a second. Damn it, where's my app? There's an app that, so there's different ways to cut the problem, right? So you could appeal to the end user to put pressure on the restaurants to change. And that's happening, right? There's a lot of users now, especially Gen Zs, and they're pushing and say, well, I'm not going to buy from you unless you change, right? And there's an app for that where people can go and put pressure on companies. Oh, it's called Remark, R-E-M-A-R-K. And you put in an email and they send it to Coke and say, you guys are responsible for 80% of the plastic in the world, right? And Coke is responding. I don't know if you saw the latest news, right? So they are responding. So you can try to cut the problem that way, right? Of course, you can also do it the other way, try to solve it for the client. But just be aware, like I said, be aware what's happening in the market and how you can use what's happening, those trends, to come up with your solution. Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for your time. And if you have follow-up questions or anything like that, but we'll send out additional information once we have it ready for you. But thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. See you guys. Good luck. Good luck, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.